Are we beginning to see a thaw or glass-nosed an opening of social media companies when it comes to free speech? Are we beginning to see that censorship policies are slowly being pulled back and repudiated? Well, I'm not sure. Twitter, of course, has become largely a free speech platform. Admittedly, there are some people still say, well, there's a lot of strings still being pulled at Twitter, and Twitter is not free of content moderation. But by and large, political speech, political debate is back on Twitter. A really good example of this, by the way, is the recent screening of Matt Walsh's film, What is a Woman?, which came with the endorsement of Elon Musk, has been seen by tens of millions of people. And this was in the face of intense opposition by the LGBTQ and trans community. Even the head of Twitter's so-called trust and safety, obviously a residual ideologue from the old regime, resigned over this. So all of this is very good news at Twitter. But is it having an effect on YouTube and on Meta? Now, I noticed that Meta, after restricting Robert F. Kennedy, has decided to do a U-turn and allow Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to get back and post his material on Meta. More significantly, YouTube just announced that we can now discuss the issue of election fraud, of what happened in the 2020 election, pretty openly on YouTube. Now, this in itself is very striking because YouTube in December of 2020 said you can't do this, and they would just ban people who did it. And this was a real problem for me and a real problem for 2000 Mules, because we had a film that legitimately investigated the issue, and yet we were in flat violation of YouTube's policies. Couldn't buy ads on YouTube, couldn't advertise the film in any way, couldn't put clips on YouTube. And this also applies to things that I say on the podcast. I'm very careful what clips I put up on YouTube, precisely because they have policies forbidding discussion of many legitimate topics, not just election fraud, but COVID and climate change and to a degree abortion and the trans issue. And all of this is done in the bogus name of, quote, protecting the community, as if to say that open discussion is somehow a threat. If you discuss abortion, you, I guess, threaten abortionists, or maybe women who want to have abortions. And if you talk about the trans community, you place the trans people in danger, even though the trans people are mainly in danger from themselves. Suicide rates in the trans community are high, and it's not because of anything that you or I are saying on social media. Now, YouTube says that they're changing this policy because, well, they don't really say why. They just say, in the current environment, we find that while removing this content does curb some misinformation, it could also have the unintended effect. And here I throw in a guffaw or a laugh, as if to say it's an unintended effect of curtailing political speech. No, this was always the intended effect. They wanted to shut down political speech. They wanted to, by and large, put the 2020 election beyond reconsideration. And to be honest, they have been successful. They've been successful to the degree that the 2020 election is now kind of a done deal and cannot really be meaningfully reopened in any way. So it's almost like YouTube has concluded, and Debbie was asking me before I started the segment, she said, I'm really interested in why they would do this and why they would do it now. And my answer is this: the crime is done. The perpetrators have gotten away with it. And it's safe now to let people speak about it because it's too late to do anything about the heist. There's a second possible reason that I think is also worth thinking about, and that is that by and large, a lot of people have just moved away from YouTube. They've realized, what's the point of trying to debate things on a platform that doesn't even allow debate? And so, for example, I would promote my podcast on YouTube, and I still post the podcast on YouTube, but you know what? I don't even look to see who's watching it because I know that they have algorithms that suppress me. I'm really focused on building up the podcast on Rumble, which is an alternative and a far better video platform. I encourage you to watch the podcast on Rumble, and then, of course, on the audio platforms, which are Apple and Google and Spotify. By the way, if you watch the podcast, make sure you subscribe to it. It makes a big difference to a podcast and a big difference to our advertising if you do that. Now, so I'm not giving YouTube too much credit or too many kudos. I'm glad they're doing this. I've actually been giving some thought to the idea of following the, let's call it the Matt Walsh precedent, and offering 2,000 mules to be seen on Twitter. I don't want to put it up. I guess I can now put it up officially on YouTube because they're allowing discussion. I could almost let's test them. Let's put 2,000 mules up on YouTube. But I just don't want to give YouTube the views. And so I've put it out on Twitter, and we'll see how Elon Musk responds to this, that I would be open to considering releasing 2,000 mules on Twitter. And this would expose it to a very wide audience. I'd have to, of course, get this approved or checked with Salem Media, which partnered with me on this project. But my point is I'm trying to move the wheels into motion. The basic idea here is to break the back of censorship by getting information out on these so-called taboo topics, not so that people get misinformation, but so that they get accurate information, can engage in legitimate debate, and can make up their own mind.